lying and cheating. That's how humans are. Yeah, but the problem is a lot of people watch Detractor shit. So when I look at that, it just says, oh, Detractor videos. Again, these algorithms were not designed in mind for everyone. So what you end up with is a site full of fakers, liars, cheats, swindlers, scumbags, and people who are just out to insult others. All right, I wanted to watch. Here, let's figure this one out. I doubt this guy really knows the secret to the algorithm, considering this guy we did this video 7 days ago, and this video only got him 47,000 views. I don't think he really hit the algorithm too hard. But let's see what he says here.
And from the outset, DSP is already casting stones from an entirely glass house. Do you guys remember the other day when his Fallout 4 episode 1 supposedly hit the algorithm and got, what, 30,000 views? I mean, how could you forget he got on pre-stream and bragged all about it and reported all of his statistics, no matter how sad they were. But this video that he's gonna look at right now gets 47,000 views and all of a sudden it didn't hit the algorithm? How's that one mathing out? Can you show your work, please? But for once, I think that this is an entirely appropriate submission for the DSP versus the internet style show, because this is about the only way that you're actually going to get DSP to ingest any sort of information about the platform that he's been making a living on for about 16 years now. I need you guys to completely disregard when he was on Twitch, but don't get your hopes too high, because just like in typical DSP fashion, he's not actually going to learn anything and is going to say all of the wrong things the entire way through.
Do this and YouTube can't ignore you. Let's see.
66% of small channels think that the YouTube algorithm treats them unfairly. And that's concerning. So I found the guy who's basically in charge of all of this stuff at YouTube. And in this video, we're going to reveal 6 tips on how the algorithm actually works, so that it takes your channel from looking like this to something more like this. But first, we need to show you who this algorithm guy is.
His name is Todd, and he is the products lead for the homepage and recommendations at YouTube, and has been working there for over a decade. He likely knows more about the YouTube algorithm than anyone else on the planet, and he's happy to share his thoughts with the public, which is fantastic.
So in this video, he's going to share quite a lot of interesting stuff, like how you can use a simple title and thumbnail hack to revive any dead video, to new packaging strategies that can boost your click-through rate, and towards the end, he'll even share why click-through rate and watch time might not be as important as you might think. But first, we need to debunk that myth that many of you believe to be true. The YouTube algorithm isn't against you.
We don't have creator objectives in our recommendation system. Like, we're not trying to get creators to upload more often, serve one creator segment over another. It's creator agnostic. Give the viewers what they want, and by doing that, you create the most opportunities for creators, and those creators compete fairly for those opportunities.
Except they don't, because the algorithm is promoting things that are considered on a trend or virally popular. So what ends up happening is you have people going to the lowest common denominator of scams, deceit, harmful content, and that's what gets pushed to the forefront of YouTube. Why is it that everyone who makes toxic, hateful content gets to the top, and people who are making the regular content get shoved under? That doesn't make any sense at all. Right?
Actually, it makes all of the sense in the world, because he just said that if you actually make the content that people want to see, then your video will get pushed the way that it deserves to be pushed. And whether you like it or not, negative content is something that people do genuinely enjoy for what it is. There's a reason that daytime television is the way that daytime television is. There absolutely is a market for all of this negative content that DSP takes so much issue with. But I love how he immediately tried to muddy the waters and include scamming and deceit into the things that people do in order to catch a trend and be pushed in the algorithm, as if it's actually YouTube's intention to push scams in the form of YouTube videos. Not saying that it's never happened or that it's never going to happen again, but obviously that's not their intent.
Your algorithm is taking in, basically, how can I say? You have humans making videos, correct? It's not a robot making the video, it's a human making a YouTube video, correct? There are some AI videos, but for the most part, it's humans making videos. Therefore, if you're creating an algorithm, it has to have human factors and judgments. It could be incredibly harmful to others. It could be deceptive and lying and cheating. That's how humans are. So to have an algorithm that's agnostic doesn't work. You idiot. That guy, the moment that guy said to me, if I was interviewing him, I'd be like, Do you have no fucking level of intelligence in your head? Do you not understand that humans are agnostic towards each other, that they literally step on each other to get ahead constantly? So why would you have an algorithm that's agnostic that everyone can game? You fucking buffoon.
Because they're in the business of providing people content that they actually want to watch DSP, not dictating what people should and shouldn't be watching, or at least that should be what they're going for. And apparently to this guy, that is what the goal is. And who is DSP of all people to talk about gaming the YouTube system in order to get that almighty dollar? He was the person making money hand over fist, absolutely clowning on YouTube and machinima back in the day. You're looking at the guy that would upload 30 to 50 videos a day at no more than 10 minutes a pop, simply to get as much ad revenue as possible and break up his gameplay sessions into as many videos as possible for more ads. So how dare he try and pull up the ladder behind him after he's already made all of his bread and spent it all on Hogan's? And I really can't stand when he pretends to give a shit about what other content people make, when the reality is he doesn't care about whether or not it's harming somebody else. He's just angry that it's more successful than whatever garbage he's putting out. And as somebody in the waste management style business, I know garbage when I see it, and that's exactly what DSP pumps out on a daily basis.
I mean, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard what that guy just said. Literally, that guy is a dunce. The guy in charge of the algorithm is a dunce. He thinks having an agnostic algorithm works. No, it doesn't. You have to adjust for human input, for human deception, for all these fucked up things that humans do to get ahead. What a moron. And this is the guy in charge of YouTube's algorithms. Gee, I wonder why the same people are always on the front page, why the most harmful content is on top. That's why. Because the people who run YouTube are fucking idiots.
Of course, the person who's far more educated and successful in life than DSP is the person who's a dunce. They're the person that's an idiot, obviously. Meanwhile, DSP still has yet to realize that his algorithm is only negative toxic drama content because that's the content that he seems to like. That's the only explanation for why he sees all of these things. Your home feed, the way that YouTube appears when you first open the app, when you first open the web page, is all of the videos that they think that you're going to like based off of your recent watch time. That's why it's never made any sense to me that DSP pretends that he doesn't like drama content. He pretends like he doesn't do it, when the reality is everyone knows it's his favorite type of content and he absolutely loves to do it. My only question is, when is he gonna go all in and just be as toxic as possible to other content creators to get more money? Because if DSP was spurging out on every single content creator on the platform on a daily basis, I promise he would have more viewers. And speaking of those other content creators, I have no idea how the algorithm pushing content that people actually want to watch is the thing that's keeping these big content creators on top. Of course, the amount of people that are clicking on the video and actually watching it are keeping it on top, but they're not going to keep watching the video. They're not going to keep clicking on this person's video if they're being pushed through the algorithm and they click on it and it's a garbage piece of material like DSP's. If DSP were to actually listen to what the guy said, it completely contradicts his idea that these big content creators are just pushed because they're big content creators. He very specifically said that it's not targeted towards certain content creators one way or another. If you make the content that people want to see, they will push it.
Means that the YouTube algorithm doesn't have any preconceived agenda that is for or against small channels or big channels. What it cares much more about is whether the video satisfies an audience, the viewer. So this is good news for small channels. It does mean that you can compete with large channels.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't at all. It means you can't compete with large channels. That's what it means. Because it's agnostic and the large channels are already big and they're already using the tactics to stay on top. It means the small channel will never be recognized. That's what it means by being agnostic in an algorithm. It's awful. It shouldn't be like that at all.
It's like he's trying to contradict what they're saying just to say that they were wrong. Just because these channels are massive and they are employing certain tactics in order to keep people watching, in order to keep people clicking on the video, doesn't mean that smaller channels can't employ those same tactics, DSP. If you wanted to edit all of your videos to look like a Mr. Beast video to keep people watching, you absolutely should. It would probably be better for your channel that way. But editing in that fashion requires a lot of knowledge. It requires you to actually be fairly proficient with an editor, both of which I know DSP isn't. I have no idea how he can hear that one content creator is not favored over another and immediately reverse that in his head. The pignosis is absolutely insane today. I'm honestly convinced at this point that if in this video they told DSP that the sky was blue, he would say that it's any other color just to try and refute them, as if there was something to gain from doing it.
on YouTube. And that's why you as a viewer will often see on your homepage a video that has only a couple of hundred views that was released a couple of days ago from a small channel. So let's move on to the more relevant question. How can you make sure that your videos satisfy the viewers more than your competition? Well,
and let me run that back for you one more time, just in case you didn't hear it, because DSP strangely didn't have anything to say when it came up.
On YouTube. And that's why you as a viewer will often see on your homepage a video that has only a couple of hundred views that was released a couple of days ago from a small channel.
Yes, you would think that Mr. Small-time content creator slash business owner slash household operator DSP Space Gaming would be jumping in joy over this information. You would think that he would be rejoicing and jumping with glee at the idea that somebody would be watching a video of his that has a couple hundred parts because that's what the algorithm thinks that people want to watch. But of course not. DSP is here to push the narrative that YouTube is against him and only pushing all of these much larger content creators. He really does have one of the worst victim mentalities I've ever seen.
Todd did share one tip that not enough creators are taking advantage of.
In terms of seeing what does well, I highly recommend that creators spend some time in the audience tab where they can find other videos their audience is watching this week. They don't.
Yeah, but the problem is a lot of people watch Detractor shit. So when I look at that, it just says, oh, Detractor videos. So it doesn't help me at all. I don't care about Detractor content. I don't want to look at Detractor content, right? Why does the algorithm favor it? Because your algorithm is agnostic. If your algorithm was smart, it would say, wait a minute, there's all these toxic defamatory videos. We don't want those factored in. We want positive content that ads should be running on, that are promoting good behavior by humans. Not, oh, just money-making behaviors. That's why the algorithm doesn't fucking work. That's why YouTube is toxic.
You gotta appreciate the self-admittance from DSP here, honestly. Even he has to acknowledge that the majority of people that view his content also view Detractor content. But you would think that that would be telling to him. You would think that he would be able to parse some sort of information out of that and reassess the way that he makes content on the internet. Maybe even reassess his own behaviors. But of course, that's not exactly in DSP's wheelhouse, so we're not gonna go ahead and do that. Instead, we're gonna continue to ask Google, and in this case YouTube, to try and be some altruistic, all-seeing company that only tries to push the good of humanity or something like that. Which I'm going to be honest with you, I think is a terrible idea, not only because I don't need a multi-billion-dollar company telling me what content I should and shouldn't be watching, but that's also a very slippery slope into only seeing content that certain people want you to see, if that makes any sort of sense. I'm just trying to figure out how absolutely massive DSP's ego actually is in order for him to think that it's just a net negative of an idea to allow people to watch the content that they want to watch just because some of it might not look too fondly on him. And that's exactly what this is. Because he doesn't care when any of this content is made about any of these other lolcows or idiots online. The only time that he takes issue with what people are watching is when it's negative about him. Or whatever upside down topsy-turvy world he lives in, he thinks that the views on that video that he's currently watching should have been his, in which case he'll take an issue with that as well.
To just look at like what Mr. Beast is doing because
I'm not kidding. If I look at that, it just shows me all Detractor content. That's all it says. Because who's jumping into my content watching it like that? The detractors. Oh, they come over here, they flood the stream, and they fucking say negative shit in the chat and dumb shit. I can't find out what my actual positive viewers want because their algorithm doesn't fucking work. So, two things this guy who's in charge of the algorithm has said so far that actually are completely fucked up. Okay? Title and thumbnail. Let's find this out.
It's like he honestly expected them to take into consideration his very unique style circumstances of being a lolcow on the internet. Sorry, the system was probably designed around the idea of normal style individuals using it, and unfortunately for you, and fortunately for all of the detractors, you're not him. But absolutely appreciate the double confirmation that the amount of detractors that show up to your content vastly outweigh the amount of positive style people that are on your content normally. Who knows, maybe some of those positive people in your chat aren't even all that positive.
And if so, how? And the answer lies in the packaging, the title and the thumbnail.
One question that creators often ask, if they change a thumbnail or update the title, does that trigger the algorithm to kind of test the video more? The answer is that we don't. And part of that is because if you could get kind of favorable treatment just by swapping some metadata, creators would just do that all the time so they could just get as much as they could. But the other reason is we actually found that we don't need to. If the thumbnail or title change actually has a difference, we've seen that pick up within like seconds of the change happening. When you see those jumps coming from a change of a title or thumbnail, those are all coming from audience reactions, and there's no...
So basically, the algorithm is also lazy. It doesn't ever reevaluate anything. It gives you one shot to be evaluated, and then after that, it just leaves you alone forever. So either your video immediately gets noticed or will never get noticed ever again, unless it's already from your existing audience. So that's 3 things that are awful about this stuff. I mean, this is... everything he said is awful.
He has to be misunderstanding everything that these people are saying out of spite. He has to be doing it out of maliciousness. There's no way that anybody can actually be this stupid. This fella just very clearly stated that the reason that it doesn't reevaluate your video is not only because it doesn't have to, because typically after you change the title and thumbnail, people are more interested in it anyway, but also because if they did do that, people would be doing it nonstop in order to just get their video constantly pushed back to the top of people's feeds. That sounds exactly to me like a practice that DSP would absolutely condemn other people doing. I could practically hear the pre-stream now. Oh, you guys, Mr. Beast is constantly changing his title and thumbnails, and it's bullshit, you guys. Sorry, I don't have a team of people making thumbnails that I can constantly swap between, you know? But of course, just like always, it's all of these content creators on top that are getting favorable treatment. There's just never any winning with this guy. There's no way to make him happy. It doesn't matter what you say, he's just gonna go against you and say that you're wrong so that he has something to say. Because apparently agreeing with people and actually understanding the things that they're saying doesn't make for good content, according to DSP, of course.
3 bad things in a row. Can we continue? Can you get worse? Let's find out what's the next one. 3 awful things from this fucking guy who's in charge of the algorithm.
As well.
But what Todd talks about next takes packaging to a whole new level, because it's no longer enough just to think about the title and the thumbnail. There's now a 3rd factor to think about that could increase or decrease that initial click.
Now we're in a world where on mobile, the thumbnail only shows for like half a second to a second while you're scrolling on the homepage. And then we found that people really liked being able to just like see what the video is about. Now the person's decision is based in large part on what they deliver in the intro and what they deliver in the intro when there's no sound. And how much time do you think most creators are looking at that through the eyes of the viewer?
My God, that's useful. Okay, that's completely 100% useful. I agree. If you preview the video by having it like move to a certain way on the app, it'll start auto playing but with no sound, so you'll see the intro of the video. All right, that one's useful. Of course, for me, like gameplay, how can I make that better? I can't. There's nothing I can really do there. For other styles of video, maybe, perhaps. I'm not sure. I don't know what I could really do to make the intro of my video more appealable. Like, to me, that makes sense for like someone who's doing a review or something, show something catchy at the very beginning, or someone like me who's doing a podcast show or doing a gameplay video. There's nothing I can really change about the early part of my video to make more attractive. So that, sadly, even though that one actually is helpful, it doesn't really help me because my content's a little different.
As if you needed any more examples of DSP being absolutely short-sighted and completely creatively bankrupt. He thinks that just because he does gameplay, he can't put anything interesting at the beginning of each one of his videos. I mean, not the way that he currently does it now, because he doesn't actually do any sort of editing at all, and his content is just as raw as it gets. But if he actually gave a shit, if he actually wanted people to click on the videos, if he actually wanted people to enjoy the time that they spent watching his videos, then he would take it to an editor. He might actually add in like a little recap of what is gonna be in this episode of DSP Space Gaming's gameplay. Of course, that's just a quick idea that came off of the top of my head because that's something similar to what I do actually. But because that takes more than 0 seconds, which is the amount of time that DSP currently spends on editing his videos, he's not going to take that into consideration. He's just going to immediately write off the entire idea because his content is so unique and different, you guys. He actually thinks that he makes unique content that nobody else is out there doing in a way that's better than him. And I say this all the time, that's what happens when you don't watch your contemporaries. When you don't watch people that do the same thing that you do, make the same sort of content, you never learn from them and you're never able to adopt any of the things that you enjoy from their content into yours.
Now, getting people to click is just half of the algorithm story. If you want to get truly noticed, then Todd suggests this.
We want to enable creators to deliver great value to audiences. And the way that they do that is by doing 2 things. Getting the users to click and getting them to watch the video. There is a danger by focusing too much on solely clicks that creators could create thumbnails that attract audiences that are not actually interested in watching the whole video and abandoned the video early. And that's not good for the creator. It's not good for the viewer. It's not good for YouTube. And so we want to focus creators on delivering the entire value.
So yes, it is possible to have a phenomenal click-through rate and still have your video perform terribly. The algorithm...
And the sad fact is, with gameplay like I do, I never get a high percentile. Why? A lot of people, when they watch a gameplay video, they'll click play, they'll see what the beginning is, and if it interests them, great, and if not, they always fast forward. They're always fast forwarding to the part of the gameplay video that they like. When I used to make shorter gameplay videos, my actual watch time and engagement rate was better because it's a shorter video. So you have a higher chance to just watch the 10-minute video than if you have a 30-minute gameplay video and you're going to probably fast forward more. So actually, when I increased the length of my videos, which is what my viewers wanted, it actually hurt my channel. It hurt the channel because now people are more apt to just fast forward through, and that kills that engagement rate.
Now, I don't make gameplay videos, and I never have, and I probably never will. Sorry to break your heart if you were waiting for the Atlas gamekeeping style streams. But while I get what DSP is saying, because obviously if you have a longer video, you are more apt to skip around for something that you're actually going to enjoy, but I imagine that this problem would actually sort itself out. Because while yes, you're gonna have people skipping around more to actually try and find parts of the content that are interesting, which in DSP's case is none of it, you're also gonna have far more people turning this content on as background noise because they don't have to mess with it for an entire hour, so they can do whatever they want while it plays and just keep listening to it. I would hope and imagine that that would balance itself out and actually not create a problem for you at all. But this is the one case in which DSP is a unique style individual, a unique snowflake, if you will, in that his content really isn't that interesting to anybody, not even enough to be background noise, which honestly I thought was a really low bar. But once again, DSP shows us to never underestimate how boring his content really can be.
You know, and there's nothing I can do about that. What I would say is, for the podcast, at least with the podcast, we're getting timestamps on the podcast in the morning. And even this video too, like usually these React videos, I get timestamps in the description. So at least people can skip to the part they want to watch and then listen, which is great. But with gameplay, there's not much you can really do. Again, these algorithms were not designed in mind for everyone. The things he's describing in the algorithm work for certain types of videos, but not for all types of videos. They made an algorithm that literally, because it's automated, because there's no human attachment to it or human factors to it, it can be gamed, it can be abused, it can be used to get what makes you popular. And anyone who genuinely isn't trying to game the system and just wants to put out content that they feel is useful or valid or positive, they get shoved right under the rug.
But they're getting shoved under the rug because people aren't watching the content. It's really that simple. Nobody's clicking on the content and watching it all the way through. Therefore, their analytics look bad and it's not going to be pushed in the algorithm. How are you failing to see this? It's as plain as day, DSP. The algorithm, based off of the way that this guy has described it, was absolutely set up with all types of content in mind, and the mere idea that if people watch it, they will push it. I can't say that enough because that's literally what he said at the beginning of the video. Of course, whether you actually believe this guy is entirely up to you. You know, all of these YouTube style employees got that Google grease on them. But if we're going based entirely off of this video and the information that we're presented in it, then DSP hasn't actually understood anything. In fact, he's gone out of his way multiple times to completely misrepresent what was just said. And imagine for a second, not a sandwich shop, I apologize. Imagine for a second that you're a DSP fan, as dented as you are, and you genuinely submitted this video in order to try and help him. And the entire time, all he does is completely contradict everything that they say, even though he's completely wrong and misrepresenting everything in the video. Why would you want to continue to try and help this person? Why would you want to continue to try and support him? And if he's not willing to take the information that's given to him and actually process it and utilize it for his own benefit? It just doesn't make any sense to me. This guy is a lost cause, and anybody still trying is just wasting their time.
This is a gameable system because the people who run it don't fucking have a brain in their head thinking business. They just think, oh, tech know-how, tech know-how. It's being street smart versus being book smart. The people who work at YouTube are incredibly book smart and have no fucking street smarts whatsoever. They don't know what it's actually like to be out there as a YouTuber trying to make a living because they don't actually talk to the right fucking people. They just sit there in their offices coding all day and tossing out changes on the site. They don't talk to anyone who gets affected by their changes. So then everything gets fucked up.
Is that actually insight into what DSP thinks that street smarts are? Street smarts only refer to being a YouTuber and running a business? I've never quite heard it described like that, but what do I know? I'm just a damn dirty detractor. I don't have a finance degree like the guy, so obviously I'm uneducated. I do think that it's patently absurd though that DSP thinks that the YouTube employees, especially the higher ups, are not in contact with any of the content creators on the platform when they make changes and decisions. You know goddamn well that some of the biggest content creators on the platform absolutely have a direct line to somebody that works at YouTube that can provide them with more information and that they can give feedback to. Of course, not going as far as to say that they take all of this feedback as 100% truth and make changes based off of that. But to not be in contact with some of these influencers and creators would just be a stupid idea. It would be like running a sandwich shop and making a bunch of changes to the menu and not actually asking any of your employees throughout the day whether the changes are going over smoothly or if they had any feedback about the changes. But again, what do I know? I'm just a detractor and I haven't been on the platform for 16 years like DSP has.
Do this more effectively later on in this video. But before I do that, you need to hear this from Todd first, because it may change the way you make videos forever.
These are things that are useful for predicting whether somebody's going to watch or how long they're going to watch. So like, did they subscribe to the channel? How much have they watched from that channel? How long has it been since they subscribed to the channel? Because we found that just knowing that they're subscribed doesn't tell the whole story. If you subscribe to a channel 8 years ago and haven't watched anything in the past year, that tells us something different than if you just subscribed yesterday.
I think what Todd is basically saying here is that the connection between the viewer and content is not binary. It's not on or off, subscribed or unsubscribed. It gets stronger, but it also gets weaker. And it might not necessarily be when a viewer subscribed to a channel, be it 5 years ago, a month ago, a week ago. And maybe, just maybe, for some viewers, their subscriptions mean nothing at all. Let me know in the comments if you feel the same about this, but I
mean, no shit. I mean, are you gonna tell me that's not like common sense?
I mean, I would imagine that it would be common sense, but it's not explicitly stated, so a clarification is absolutely appreciated. But I'm imagining that all of those channels that subscribed to DSP Space Gaming back in the day and just completely forgot are thanking their lucky stars right now that this is the way that the system works. Because I couldn't imagine if they just flipped the switch one day and all of a sudden everybody was getting flooded with DSP Space Gaming videos, the uproar that it would cause. Of course, the uproar wouldn't be DSP specific. There would just be a lot of very general posts asking why they're getting recommended videos from channels that they haven't actually heard from in years.
Is that it? I guess that's it. Oh, don't just look. Let's look at the last one. Okay.
Having said all of this, we do need to caution on focusing on just one signal or one metric that determines the YouTube algorithm.
And that's why there's like literally hundreds of these different things that are considered. Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they get nervous about the algorithm, is that they're worried that just because one signal says something doesn't mean that they're no longer interested, or there's multiple angles on understanding the viewer's interests. And so we have lots of different paths that videos can spread.
This is a really important point that Todd is making. We often see comments from creators who boast about a 25% click-through rate or a 70% audience retention, but being puzzled about why the video doesn't get more views. Sadly, this is where metrics can be misleading because each one represents one part of a much bigger jigsaw. True, lots of people may have clicked on a thumbnail, but then nobody watched the video. On the other hand, audience retention might be really high, but it was a trending topic, or there just isn't a big audience for the topic. And of course, metrics can be very fluid. Click-through rate can go down as the video is shared out to a wider audience and more people click on it. Some of the most successful videos on YouTube have terrible click-through rate and low audience retention because it's being shared amongst such a massive audience. YouTube is testing it with everyone. I guess the point Todd is trying to make is that you shouldn't treat each metric within its own vacuum. With time and more videos, you'll get more data, and then you can start to identify patterns. But having said all of this, along with the thoughts of a YouTube expert, some of you still aren't convinced, are you? You're still convinced that the YouTube algorithm hates your...
No, it doesn't hate content. The problem is, again, as I said, the YouTube algorithm is a robot with absolutely no human component to it whatsoever. It doesn't factor in human behaviors. It doesn't understand that people have found ways to game it for advantage, and once those people game it, they stay on top. It doesn't factor in bad actors like toxic, harmful, defamatory, slanderous, meaning mean-spirited, and essentially content that should not be monetized. It doesn't factor in any of those whatsoever. In fact, it basically capitalizes on those. It takes advantage of the bad parts of human nature to make money. So what you end up with is a site full of fakers, liars, cheats, swindlers, scumbags, and people who are just out to insult others, and they are the ones who are getting all of the attention, while anyone else who just wants to be nice and share a nice experience or a little bit of expertise about something gets shoved under the rug.
But you know what the greatest part about YouTube actually is? Despite all of its flaws, if you want to watch a style of content, you can go out of your way and find it. Sure, maybe upon creating a brand new account, that kind of content is not going to be pushed directly towards you. But it's completely under your control whether or not you go out of your way to find that content, watch that content all the way through, and in turn have the algorithm push that content to you frequently. DSP acts as though just because a content creator isn't on the trending page, nobody's going to watch the content, and that the algorithm isn't pushing it somewhere. You don't have to be Mr. Beast in order to have your video pushed somewhere. There's so many smaller creators that have their audience and can be successful and even make a living on the platform because they provide an actual piece of content that their audience wants to watch. And that's the part that DSP is missing out on the most. That's the actual takeaway from this entire video, is if you make content that people actually want to watch, your content will be watched. But of course, if he were to actually acknowledge that that was the point of this entire video, he would also have to acknowledge that the reason that he no longer gets as many views as he used to is because nobody wants to watch his content, which I'm sure isn't news to you, but would absolutely break his ego.
You have the most toxic, awful people being promoted on YouTube, and no one stops it because you made a robot judge the whole site. You're a moron. This guy who's in charge of the YouTube algorithm is a moron. He literally didn't program in any level of morality or intelligence into the algorithm. He just had a fucking automated system go and do whatever it wants. And what made you think that was going to work on a site with human input? This is a human-based site. It's not a robot-based site. Oh my God. Anyway.
I absolutely agree, DSP. Anyway, I'm over this segment, but I'm not over all of the comments that were left on my last video. So of course it's big ups to the 60 skulls, because we're going to be taking a look at some of those. Danku Franku says, literally millions of real human-style individuals on Earth just schedule Windows to update when they shut down their PC for the night. I don't get how this is so complicated and inconvenient. I'm right there with you, Franku. I don't understand it either. The only thing that actually makes any sort of sense is that he has undiagnosed ODD, or he quite literally has nothing else more exciting going on in his life because he only leaves but once a week. So talking about Windows updates and being inconvenienced by them is some of the most important information he actually has to relay for content. Sad, pathetic, and embarrassing. Anon Voila says, when you think that the more browsers and tabs you have open, the more professional you seem. You would think he was day trading over there. Well, DSP's confirmed in the past that he doesn't actually understand how day trading works. So I'm gonna have to disagree. I don't think that he would be day trading over there. But you're right, it is kind of absurd that he thinks that the more browsers and tabs he has open, the more professional and efficient his setup actually is, when the reality is it's kind of the exact opposite. And Vaporware says, I'm in awe of the fact that a man who has been the victim of fraud and identity theft to the extent Phil has doesn't see the wisdom in keeping up to date on software updates. Well, we are talking about somebody with the biggest victim complex I've ever seen. This might just be some sort of 5D chess that I just wasn't expecting, where he leaves his PC and laptop completely vulnerable to cyber attacks so that he can continue to play victim on the internet, and in turn make more content because of it. Maybe it's really just a long con the whole time. But you want to know what's not a long con? This video. So I want to thank everybody who watched it, especially if you made it this far. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other Detractor content and dive deeper into that. Snortex.